Hey, sitting outside because it's such a beautiful day. All right, we are at chapter 18, and they just saw shooting down the tunnel were 3 rows of bared teeth. The sword Temp had saved was still in his hand. As the jaws were about to snap down on Twitch Tip, Gregor vaulted over her and drove the blade straight down the serpent's tongue. Liquid spurted up into his face. He tumbled back and slipped in a puddle of Twitch Tip's blood. His feet went out from under him, and he landed against the rat's body. The creature reared up, smashing its head into the tunnel ceiling. Rocks showered down on them. Gregor could physically feel the serpent's primeval roar going through him. It continued crashing its head up and down in pain and rage as it withdrew from the tunnel, the sword still lodged in its tongue. Would more come in? I need another sword, Gregor shouted, and Howard tossed one up to him. He stood crouched before Twitch Tip's senses heightened. He could feel himself buzzing on the edge of going into that rager mode. He fought it, trying not to lose control as he stood there awaiting the next onslaught. It never came. Maybe word had gotten around that if you stuck your head down this tunnel you could mess up your tongue. Or maybe the serpents had found more interesting food. Whatever it was, things were beginning to quiet down out there. The howls became fewer and the splashes died. Gregor unclenched his hands and turned around. Ares was right behind him, providing backup. Twitch Tip had both paws on her nose to staunch the flow of blood. Howard was pounding on Marith's chest, trying to restart his heart. Marith! Gregor ran back to where the soldier lay on the ground. Come on, Marith! Howard pounded a few more times and pressed his ear against Marith's chest. His heartbeat is back. What have you in your pack, Overlander? Gregor dumped his pack on the floor. It held his last batteries, the duct tape, the 2 candy bars, and a few catch cloths he'd put in to have handy in case Boots needed a change. Howard ripped off the remains of Mare's blood-soaked pant leg, revealing jagged flesh around a gaping wound. A serpent bit him when he went to help Twitch Tip. He laid 3 catch cloths over the wound. Hold them, he ordered Gregor. Then he wrapped the duct tape around the leg to keep them in place. He sat back on his heels and shook his head. We have to get him home if he is to survive. Warm him, Andromeda, while I tend to the rat. Andromeda lay beside Marith and enfolded him in her wings. I must take him home. I must take him home. Howard grabbed the last 2 catch cloths and went to Twitch Tip. He used one to bandage the stump of her tail. I'm sorry I had to sever it, he said to the rat. There was no other way to free you. I would have bit through it myself if I could have, said Twitch Tip. Howard placed the other catch cloth over her nose and wound duct tape to it. You will have to breathe through your mouth until it heals. The rat nodded. What happened to your nose? Asked Gregor. Just before Howard cut me free, a serpent crushed it with its tail, said Twitch Tip. I can't smell a thing. You can't smell? Said Gregor. Twitch Tip would not be able to smell the bane then, but there was a much more pressing matter. Then you can't tell where my sister is, I mean? Do not fret, Overlander. My cousin and Aurora are an excellent team. I'm sure they have all taken refuge in one of the tunnels, said Howard, but he looked uneasy. I believe they meant to, Twitch Tip said, avoiding Gregor's gaze. You believe they meant to? It was all very confusing. The serpent was swinging me around, and there was so much motion, it was difficult to place any smell. Luxa and Aurora caught Boots. They caught Temp. Aurora said this to me, said Ares. Yes, I know. Their smells were all together, but then, there was water between us, said Twitch Tip. What does that mean? There was water between us, said Gregor. It means I still smelled them, but there was water between us. Many feet of it. Their scent was getting fainter, and that's when the serpent hit my nose and everything went dark, said Twitch Tip. You think they were pulled under then, said Howard. I don't know for sure, but that would be my guess if I were forced to make one, said Twitch Tip. She looked up at Gregor. I'm sorry, Overlander. This did not happen. I will call for Aurora now, Ares said, and shot out of the tunnel. No one moved while he was gone. Gregor's body was slowly turning to ice. The numbness started in his feet and began spreading up his legs, over his hips, up through his stomach. By the time Ares came back and leaned beside him, it had reached his rib cage. There is no answer, said the bat, and ice encircled his heart. Die the baby, die his heart, die his most essential part. They had killed Boots. Nothing could be worse than this. He imagined going back to New York City and walking through the front door of his apartment, alone. What do you wish to do, Gregor? Howard asked after some indistinguishable period of time had passed. Die the baby, die his heart, die his most essential part, die the peace that rules the hour. Gnars have their key to power. They were off celebrating somewhere, the Gnars, gnashing their ratty teeth and laughing and congratulating one another on how well their plan had worked, on how they'd killed his baby sister and broken him in two. The ironic thing was that for the first time Gregor could envision what he was going to do. Gregor, repeated Howard. The ice had come up over his throat, and his voice was calm and cool. "I want you guys to go home. Get Marith back. Twitch-Tip too if you can," said Gregor. "And what will you do, Overlander?" asked Twitch-Tip. Gregor felt the last bit of warmth disappear as the ice went across his forehead, up over the top of his head. There was nothing left anyone could do to him now. There was nothing left to fear. "Me," he said. "I'm going to kill the Bane." That was the end of part 2. Part 3 is called The Maze.